Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are absolutely tearing into the evolution of football's biggest tournament, the World Cup. By digging into the data, shifting tactics, and those unforgettable historical moments, we're going to decode exactly how this competition grew from a tiny 13-team invitational into the absolute pinnacle of global sports. To make nearly a century of history easy to digest, we've broken down 22 tournaments into 5 distinct eras. 1. Birth and political shadows. 2. The golden age of flair. 3. Tactics and individual geniuses. 4. Globalization and tactical pragmatism. And 5. The modern elite. Let's just jump right in. Kicking things off with era number 1, birth and political shadows. So the chaotic early days of this competition kicked off back in 1930. The very first tournament was held in Uruguay to celebrate their centennial of independence, and only 13 teams actually took part. Pablo Dorado opened the scoring in a final where Uruguay defeated Argentina 4-2 to lift the original Jules Rimet trophy. Then we see Italy dominating with consecutive wins in 34 and 38. But, as we know, right after that 1938 tournament in France, a heavy political shadow fell over the globe. World War II forced a massive 12-year gap before the tournament finally made its return in 1950. And wow, when it came back in 1950, it returned with a literal roar. Just try to picture this staggering number, 200,000. That is the estimated number of people packed into the Maracanã Stadium in Brazil for the decisive match. The host nation, Brazil, took the lead, but Uruguay mounted this insane, dramatic comeback to win 2-1. It's a shock result that forever became known as the Maracanazo, cementing itself for sure as one of football's greatest ever upsets. Speaking of massive upsets, just 4 years later, we got the miracle of Bern. So it's 1954. West Germany, a nation still deeply recovering from the utter devastation of World War II, faced a seemingly invincible Hungary team. I mean, Hungary had actually crushed them 8-3 in the group stages and then went up 2-0 early in the final. No way they come back, right? Well, the Germans staged an astonishing fight back. Helmut Rahn scored the decisive goal in the 84th minute to win it 3-2. What you really need to take away here is the sheer power of the sport. This single underdog victory literally lifted the spirits of an entire recovering nation. All right, moving right along to Section 2, the golden age of flair. In 1958, a 17-year-old kid named Pelé announces himself to the world, scoring twice in the final. Just wild. By 62, even when Pelé suffered an early injury, Brazil proved their depth. Garrincha just stepped up with this breathtaking dribbling to secure back-to-back titles for Brazil. In 66, England claimed glory on their home turf, but by 1970, Brazil returned to absolute, undisputed dominance. This era truly peaked in 1970. This specific squad, featuring Pelé, Jairzinho, and Carlos Alberto, they basically wrote the eternal rulebook for what attacking football should look like. They won every single game in Mexico. They produced a brand of football with unmatched beauty, peaking in the final with Carlos Alberto's thunderous long-range strike. You know the ones, those iconic yellow shirts playing their joyful samba style. They became the global symbol of the beautiful game. But hey, before we leave the swinging 60s, we kind of have to briefly step back to 1966 to look at the most debated goal in football history. During England's final against West Germany at Wembley, the game went into extra time. Geoff Hurst scored a historic hat-trick, but his second goal, where the ball hit the crossbar and bounced down onto the goal line, well, it remains fiercely debated to this day. Regardless, England won 4-2, securing a truly defining national moment. Which brings us to Section 3, Tactics and Individual Geniuses. This era is where we see a massive shift in philosophy. In 1974, West Germany used brute tactical and physical power to shut down Johan Cruyff's revolutionary total football to win the title. In 78, Mario Kempes heroically starred for Argentina to win on home soil. In 82, Italy paired this incredibly disciplined defense with Paolo Rossi's unbelievable 6-goal redemption arc to secure their third title. And then, we arrive at 1986. Now, before we get into the pure on-pitch magic of the 80s, we really need to acknowledge a darker historical context, because football has so often existed in the shadow of the state. Throughout history, host governments have used the event for political propaganda. We see this neutrally documented in the sources regarding Mussolini's fascist government in Italy during the 34 and 38 tournaments, and again with Argentina's military dictatorship hosting in 78. The tournament's exploding popularity just made it a prime target for state messaging. But returning to the pitch, sometimes one player can just completely transcend a tournament. And 1986, that undeniably belongs to Diego Maradona. I mean, against England in the quarterfinal, he scores the infamous Hand of God, and then follows it up with a breathtaking solo run that literally got dubbed the goal of the century. He almost single-handedly carried Argentina to victory over West Germany in the final. To this day, it is widely considered the greatest individual display in World Cup history. All right, on to Section 4, globalization and tactical pragmatism. You're going to notice a striking contrast here. We've essentially gone from the beautiful, flowing game of 1970 Brazil to some deeply cynical defending by the time we hit the 1990 tournament in Italy. Fact is, 1990 became the lowest scoring World Cup ever. It featured a record 16 red cards, and the final was decided by a highly controversial late penalty for West Germany. Pragmatism had officially taken the wheel. But the next 4 tournaments rapidly accelerated the game's globalization. In '94, the U.S. hosted its first World Cup, and a defensive Brazil won after Roberto Baggio's heartbreaking penalty miss, making it the first final ever decided on penalties. In '98, France won at home behind 2 massive headers from Zinedine Zidane. 2002 gave us our first ever Asian co-hosts in Japan and South Korea, marked by Brazilian striker Ronaldo's incredible phoenix-like comeback from a knee injury to score 8 goals. And then, in 2006, Italy triumphed in a final entirely defined by Zidane's infamous Panenka penalty and, of course, his subsequent red card headbutt. Looking back at that 1998 French victory for a second, it wasn't just about football. The Black Blanc Beur, meaning Black White Arab, multicultural squad genuinely united a country during a time of deep social tension. It sparked this massive wave of national pride and truly laid the groundwork for France's future international success. Finally, we reach Section 5, the modern elite. Stepping right into the modern era, in 2010, hosted in Africa for the very first time, Spain's revolutionary tiki-taka possession style peaked, capped off by Andreas Iniesta's dramatic 116th minute extra-time volley. In 2014, Germany's clinical efficiency earned them the trophy, with Mario Götze's winning volley. In 2018, France showcased a perfect blend of youth and experience, with a 19-year-old Kylian Mbappé completely starring in the final. And then, we have 2022 and Qatar, a truly classic victory for Argentina. Actually, scratch that. Before we talk about 2022, we really need to look at this shocking number from 2014, 7. Germany had undergone a decade-long youth development project, and the ultimate culmination of that was the infamous 7-1 semifinal complete demolition of the host nation, Brazil. I mean, it was a clinical blueprint for success that stunned the entire footballing world. All right, now we can finally arrive at the absolute magic of the 2022 final. It was an all-time classic for sure. We saw a thrilling 3-3 draw after 120 minutes of grueling play. We witnessed Kylian Mbappé score a hat-trick, the first in a final since Jeff Hurst back in '66. Gonzalo Montiel steps up and converts the decisive spot kick in the shootout. But most importantly, Lionel Messi scored twice and played with this ultimate maturity, finally capturing the elusive trophy and cementing his unparalleled legacy. Which leaves us with one final provocative question. Who is going to take the crown in 2026? We know the tournament is expanding yet again, and that Canada, Mexico, and the United States will be sharing the hosting duties. But based on all the tactical shifts in the rich history we've just unpacked together, who do you think is going to win it next? Let me know your predictions below. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.